when the doors to the America's Got Talent stage opened. For the next audition, no one in the entire auditorium expected that one of the most unforgettable performances of the 2025 season was about to walk in disguised as a shy, skinny 17-year-old Filipino boy who looked nothing like the kind of artist who could shake the world. With his slicked-back hair, a slightly oversized leather jacket, and a nervous smile that flickered across his face every few seconds, he stood at the center of the brightly lit stage, clutching the microphone, as though it was the only thing keeping him steady. But beneath that nervousness, hidden behind the awkwardness of a teenager who never imagined standing before thousands of strangers, there was a spark in his eyes, the kind of spark that belonged to someone who carried a voice that could awaken a generation. The audience whispered among themselves, trying to guess what this young Filipino boy could possibly do. Simon Cowell adjusted his posture, narrowing his eyes with interest as though instinctively sensing that something about this kid was different. When asked his name, the boy spoke softly but clearly, explaining that back home in the Philippines, everyone called him Elvis, because he had grown up singing nothing but Elvis Presley songs in the tiny karaoke bar his family owned. The audience chuckled gently, thinking it was cute, maybe even endearing, but definitely not expecting anything extraordinary. But Simon Cowell leaned in with curiosity, asking him what song he planned to perform. The boy answered with pride and a touch of trembling excitement, "I'll be singing Can't Help Falling in Love." At first it sounded like the usual sentimental audition song, the kind that hopeful singers chose when they wanted to connect emotionally with the judges. But the moment the boy closed his eyes, tilted his head slightly downward, and began to sing the first line, the room froze. His voice didn't just sound like Elvis. It felt like Elvis, the rich, deep warmth, the velvety, smooth tone, the sweet vibrato, the husky undertone that came out only when hitting a lower note. All of it wrapped around the melody with such uncanny accuracy that the audience gasped in unison. It wasn't an imitation. It wasn't mimicry. It was as if the spirit of the king himself had been reborn inside, a Filipino teenager standing barefoot on one of the biggest stages in the world. Simon's eyebrows shot up so quickly that even Howie turned to him wide-eyed. Heidi covered her mouth. Sophia's face lit up with disbelief. The entire auditorium became so quiet that it felt like the air itself was listening, and the boy kept singing, growing more confident with every single note. His stance shifted, the microphone angled slightly downward, his shoulders relaxing, the tone deepening with more emotional control. He didn't add unnecessary runs. He didn't theatrically throw his arms around. He didn't shout. He simply delivered the song with a sincerity and a natural musicality that made every single person in the room feel like they were hearing Elvis for the first time again, transported back in time yet grounded in the present. By the sight of this young Filipino boy, who had grown up thousands of miles away in a small province, where his only stage had been a karaoke machine and a neon open sign flickering outside his family's bar. As he hit the gentle soaring notes of the chorus, the audience leaned forward. Unable to look away, some had tears forming in their eyes, not just because of the nostalgia, but because of the raw, unexpected beauty of the moment. Simon Cowell, the judge, known around the world for his brutal honesty and refusal to be easily impressed, was staring at the boy with a look so intense it almost looked like disbelief. Halfway through the performance, Simon whispered under his breath, picked up faintly by the judge's microphones, "This can't be real," and those 4 words would later become the headline that spread across the internet. Like wildfire, the boy finished the last line with a soft, controlled tone that melted into the silence of the auditorium. For a moment, no one clapped. No one breathed. It was as though the world needed a second to process what had happened then. The room erupted in cheers so loud it echoed through every corner of the arena. People stood from their seats. Some screamed, some cried. Some simply clapped with both hands raised high, as though applauding something heavenly. The Filipino boy, overwhelmed by the eruption of emotion, stared out at the ocean of cheering faces. With disbelief written across every inch of his expression, tears welled in his eyes, though he tried to blink them away. But they kept forming until one rolled down his cheek, shining under the stage lights. Heidi was the first to speak. She told him that she had heard many Elvis covers in her lifetime, but none had ever sounded so natural, so effortless, so emotionally genuine. She said, His voice didn't sound like an imitation. It sounded like a gift Sophia followed with praise, calling him a bridge between generations, someone who could bring the magic of Elvis to young and old audiences. Like Howie said, he didn't just sing like Elvis. He performed with the heart of someone who truly understood the spirit of music. But it was Simon's turn that made the entire room fall silent again. He leaned close to the microphone, staring at the boy with an expression that held equal parts shock, admiration, and something almost personal. "I've been judging talent shows for many years," he said slowly, "and I've seen people try to sound like Elvis, dress like Elvis, move like Elvis, but I have never, ever heard anyone channel the soul of Elvis like you just did." The audience roared, but Simon raised his hand for silence. "There are auditions that are good. There are auditions that are great," he continued. "And then there are auditions that make the world stop for a moment. What you just did is one of those auditions." The boy covered his mouth, overwhelmed, shaking his head in disbelief, and then Simon stood up. He looked directly at the golden buzzer in front of him. The audience began screaming, "Do it, do it!" And the boy started crying harder, bringing both hands to his face. And before another second passed, Simon slammed the golden buzzer with such force that confetti burst into the air in a swirling explosion of gold, falling like a glittering storm around the boy. The entire auditorium erupted into screams. Golden confetti filled the stage, sparkling around the Filipino Elvis as he broke down completely, tears streaming down his cheeks. He sank to his knees and let the moment swallow him whole, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. His parents rushed from backstage, hugging him tightly while confetti continued to rain down. Simon walked onto the stage, a rare occurrence, and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, telling him quietly, "The world is going to remember you." And Simon was right. Within hours of the episode airing, clips of the performance exploded online. Millions of people across different countries shared it, with captions like "This Filipino Elvis is unreal, goosebumps from start to finish." And Simon Cowell was right. This doesn't feel real. Filipinos around the world, OFW's families, students, grandparents shared it with pride, calling him the new symbol of Filipino talent. News outlets began covering the story. Entertainment reporters labeled it one of the greatest AGT auditions ever, and reaction videos from musicians, vocal coaches, and Elvis fans spread across YouTube. Some called him a reincarnation. Others said he carried the same emotional fire Elvis once had. But for the boy, everything remained surreal. He gave interviews where he explained that he grew up listening to Elvis through an old speaker in his dad's karaoke bar, that he never had voice lessons, that he just sang because it made him happy. He said he never believed someone like him, from a small town with little money, could ever make it this far. As the competition progressed, the boy continued to shock the world. He performed more Elvis songs in later rounds, each time bringing a fresh emotional depth. "Suspicious Minds," "If I Can Dream," and "Love Me Tender." Every performance became a viral moment in the semifinals. He delivered a heart-stopping rendition of Unchained Melody, blending his Filipino warmth with Elvis's timeless soul. The audience cried again, Simon cried again, and each time he proved that he wasn't just a novelty act. He was an artist by the time the finals arrived. The world already saw him as the breakout star of AGT 2025. Even without winning the entire competition, he had already won something far more powerful: the hearts of millions the night of the finals. As he stood under the spotlights once more, he remembered the tiny karaoke bar, the old speaker, the neon lights, the customers cheering him on when he was just a kid, singing Blue Suede Shoes with a plastic microphone. He remembered his parents working hard every day just to keep things running. He remembered the nights he stayed awake, wondering if he would ever be good enough for the world to notice him. And now here he was, the Filipino Elvis who shocked the world. His voice had traveled farther than he ever imagined. His story had touched people he would never meet. And even though he was still young, still figuring out life, still navigating dreams that suddenly grew bigger than ever, he had already created a legacy, one that would inspire countless kids who grew up singing into hairbrushes, believing that maybe someday, if they were brave enough, the world might hear them too. And long after the stage lights dimmed, long after the confetti was swept away, the world continued to share his story. One boy, one voice. One unbelievable moment that even Simon Cowell said can't be real. But it was real, it was powerful, and it was unforgettable.